Todd, you there?
Here, man. I'm so impressed that we've done it again with our outfits.
We look so fly. I'm just saying.
I know.
I'm gonna be sad that tonight's there's only one more night. So when else am I gonna be wearing this? I'm just gonna wear it.
I think this is sort of like Charlie Brown wears the yellow shirt. I wear this now
all day at work tomorrow. Yeah. This is just my new get up.
Well, everyone, welcome to Hoppy Hanukkah. I'm Todd Summers.
And I'm Chad Brodsky. We'll be your drinking buddies, I guess, for only 2 more nights. Kind of this tonight and then one more, and then it's over.
Hanukkah it's night 7.
Night 7. What we got?
Let's open that night 7 beer.
Ooh. Robert's ready for night 7.
Yeah, he's pumped. Ooh. I just got.
Who wanted dark? Someone wanted a dark beer yesterday.
Someone said it.
You ask and you shall receive.
Chocolate porter.
All right, so we're gonna try to stay on time for tonight as we grab this beer. Todd, you're gonna just start pouring because I'm gonna just talk and I can't pour. I can't multitask like that. But because it's a porter, we're gonna talk about the difference between stouts and porters tonight. We're also gonna be talking about obviously this delicious beer and then covering how we pair this beer with some food because we can pair this beer with a lot of food. But before that, Todd obviously has housekeeping. He always has housekeeping items.
It's my specialty. So for the housekeeping tonight, questions, they go in the Q&A, banter for the chat. Make sure your chat settings are set to panelists and attendees. Chad, I think a housekeeping item is that we've had so many beers over the past week that I think at some point people might have forgotten a little bit about who we are. So, Chad, who are you?
I'm Chad.
Why are you hosting this?
My name is Chad Brodsky. I like long walks on the beach. I have a dog named Oliver. I'm also the president and CEO of City Brew Tours and a certified Cicerone. What are you into, Todd? Why are you here?
My name is Todd Summers. I like being outside. I have a fiance and a dog named Olive. The only difference in names, no R at the end. I appreciate the finer things in life. I have expensive taste. I'm into caviar and stuff like that. I am the City Brew Tour sales manager and a beer guide, formerly sometimes of Boston, but in Burlington as well.
I also forgot I'm a dad too, and I'm still like a new dad. So it just, the dog dad first came into mind, and then
you were a dog dad first and then a human dad like later. So I think you were actually tracking correctly down the line.
All right, beer time. I think we need to get beer into people.
Cheers. So this is the Goodwater Chocolate Porter. It's a great local option for me. I live in Shelburne, Vermont. Goodwater is based out of Williston, Vermont. They are adjacent. So Goodwater is owned by a great friend of the program. His name is Marty Bonneau.
Shout out to Marty.
Marty is
watching.
He is an absolute, like, there are legends and then there are like whatever's past legends, and then Marty is like well above that. His last name literally in French means good water, hence Goodwater Brewery. They founded it in 2016. They recently just went over this massive expansion. They were working through the COVID, and they took over the space next door. They're lovely people. Something that's really cool about this is besides Marty supplying this beer for the Hanukkah boxes, they supply a ton of beer. We do tons of beer and cheese pairings for a lot of special occasions and corporate events. And Marty has supplied literally thousands and thousands and thousands of beer for that excursion. We couldn't do it without him. He is the best.
Cheers to Marty.
This is just for Marty and Goodwater.
Yeah, no one else can actually cheers. Sorry. Can you say his last name?
Bonneau. That's probably not good, right?
I think it was pretty good. I mean, but he would probably say that we didn't do a very good job. Let's get into this appraisal, right?
Sorry.
Let's get into this beer.
I want to hear about it.
All right. So first of all, when we look at this beer, this looks a little different than our other beers that we've had. Anyone?
What do you mean?
So, I mean, it looks kind of like last night's beer, right?
Yeah, this is the difference between a Pilsner and this. I just don't know if I have anything to add to the conversation.
So we're gonna. This would definitely. Robert's like, this definitely won't pass the finger test. If you are wiggling your fingers at home right now. So this is actually going to be a very, I would say it's deep brown. I actually know the exact color reference of this beer. It's actually 29 SRM. Todd, do you know SRM? That's standard reference method.
Reference method. Yeah, right. That speaks to how dark a beer is. So last night is probably what? 2?
Very low,
3?
like in the set.
1?
Yes, yeah, like 4-ish maybe, like very.
Yeah,
very
I guess
low.
1 would be water, right?
Yeah. So just looking at this, that's going to tell you a lot, obviously, about this beer. Before I even have to taste it, I'm just by the appearance, I'm going to know that there's going to be some roasted and chocolatey characters here. But like, get the nose on there. Oh, I get like dark, rich chocolate. And that's also on the palate as well. So when you go for the taste, I don't remember. I don't know if everyone remembers at home, but do you guys remember if you focus that first taste on the front of your palate? This is going to be a really interesting way to do it, because when you focus that first taste on the front of the palate, it's going to be that really chocolatey sweetness. But when you take it and then throw it to the back of your tongue, you're going to get that bitter backbone, and you need the bitter and the sweet to be able to balance. And like, this is a really well balanced beer, but when it's a fun little thing to do that.
Yeah, and what when we're talking about balance, what's important about a balanced beer is that if you have something like, if you have a chocolate porter that's just going to overwhelm you with chocolate, that's good and well. Breweries will make beers that are super, super chocolatey, but from a drinking perspective, it's going to be hard to drink a lot of that because you're going to get overwhelmed by the sweetness. So even keel is good, especially when you have some more of those overpowering notes of like the sweetness of a chocolate.
And so, a very important thing to note, this is called the chocolate porter based on the name. There's no chocolate in this beer. We're not Goodwater doesn't actually add any chocolate to any part of the brewing process. So
you lying? Are they lying? Is this lie? Are they lying to us?
They're not lying. I asked Marty, I was like, are you sure? Because this is so delicious and so chocolatey. It comes from the chocolate malt. So depending on the type of malt that you use is going to impart different flavor profiles. And so this malt is a chocolate malt, which means it's going to impart more chocolate flavor and flavor notes in the beer, in the final product. So,
Chad, while you take a sip of that, I think we have a question that's popped up a couple times that I think we should get to, and it's especially pertinent because this is our first. We have a porter. We haven't had one yet. And as a Cicerone, I think you're uniquely qualified for this, but is there a certain type of glass that we should be drinking out of for this? Like, proper glassware is sort of all the rage. You know, for last night, if we were being technical, we know we would have had that, or 2 nights ago with Andrew, we would have had that Pilsner glass that would have angled out.
Sure.
So how important is it? Should I be slapping glasses out of my friends' hands when they have the wrong thing?
That would be hilarious if you were just like
no!
slapping.
This is improper glassware. Get out of my house.
You were drinking the wrong beer out of the wrong glass. There are bars and restaurants. I encourage you to find the bars and restaurants if they have the correct glassware for that style. Like, you know that's a place that you want to frequent. But when you're talking about glassware, a lot of it's regional, so it's coming from where that beer originated. So this is actually a traditional, like, English porter, classic English porter recipe. And so I would say like a no-nick pint glass is going to be, so it's those pint glasses that kind of look like this, but it has like a little hoop there, and that's going to be that's going to probably be that beer you would drink a porter or a stout from.
And sometimes they'll give the very, very, very little stem, and then the like I'm bad with shapes. It's a thing of mine, almost like a gourd, if you will, like goblet. I don't know the proper name, but I feel like that's pretty common with the little mini stem.
Yeah, so beers that are just like heavier in style that are going to be more complex, you're drinking those at a slower pace too. So you find those, they might be in that kind of goblet like you would in a quad or something. Depends also what kind of beer. Like if you're talking an Imperial Stout, you're probably not going to be, that's going to be like 12% alcohol. You're not going to probably want a pint of that. You're going to probably want a smaller portion.
I drink those out of shot glasses. Is that bad?
Just a 1 ounce shot at a time.
And I have to, for anyone who's up with like funny internet beer things, there was a moment in time where like breweries that were thought that they were like really popular were getting really into trying to get people to drink IPAs out of bowls, because the idea being that there's more of this surface area, so you get more of the aroma. I plead and beg of all of you, just please don't drink out of bowls unless it's like the milk at your end of your cereal. So Chad, let's keep going.
So this beer, I would say it's medium carbonation. So it's not going to be overly carbonated. That the beer we had last night, a light American Pilsner, highly carbonated. The DC Brau Pilsner, highly carbonated. Pilsners are going to be just higher in carbonation in general. This one's going to be a lower carbonation as well. So it's going to add to the mouthfeel. You'll find. Also, this beer is, from an IBU perspective, bitterness perspective, it's about 30, so 31. So it's kind of like that middle of the road IBU. It's not as high as you would have an IPA, but it's not as low as like the Pilsner from last night. So kind of that middle of the road, and again balancing out that sweetness. Depending on the porter style, like porters and stouts come in so many different styles. So like I said, this is a classic English porter.
What else do we have?
There could be Baltic porters. That's a different style of beer. There could be stouts. They might look similar, but they're all different in their makeup.
Totally. And I know the chat is just like loving the Tiku glass, which is someone called it the Swiss Army glass, and I think it is a good looking glass too. It makes me feel like I should put on a suit. Like I'm wearing a suit right now, but like maybe one with a little less pizzazz.
I had glass, like kind of, you have so many different glasses. I'm envious of your glassware, and I'm still drinking
the dog.
I'm drinking the only, like I told Liana, I was like, I need better glassware. I have a Tiku, but I didn't think it was appropriate. Like I didn't want to be like come off pretentious, like drinking the like want to man of the people, like want to be able to, but I need to get better glassware. I'm going to. That's going to be my New Year's resolution, is to get better glassware and write it off.
If anyone didn't buy Chad a Hanukkah present,
it's beer research. I could write that expense off. Done.
It's a great idea. Other ones,
I can't. Sorry.
I can do whatever I want. I'm not audited. What are big stouts? I know people have been mentioning high ABV ones. The Russian Imperial Stout. Imperial is a good beer word for like up on the ABV spectrum. So Russian Imperial. Did we mention pastry stouts?
Yeah, there's so many. And just to give people at home, just so they understand, porters were the original like dark beer. And this was about 300 years ago. And then it then kind of evolved into stout porter. So essentially a stout porter meant that was, okay, there's this porter that's good, and it's the most common beer of the porters, which were like the common class drinking it. And then there is now this stout porter, which is essentially, now they added an adjective to the existing beer. So it was then stout porter. So that just means it was the higher alcohol beer of the time. So it was, and also everything was pretty much dark back then, because of that's how like they used flames to kiln dry their malt. So, but yeah, so really stout porter is what the style, and then they kind of, based on region, and then kind of broke off into different areas from there.
So Chad, when we're talking, like, speaking of kiln drying, that means that something is happening to the malt. What's that called?
That is called the Maillard reaction.
And it sounds complex. That's a fancy word. Are there examples of a Maillard reaction that you can maybe show me? I can't really wrap my head around it. So I think if you could maybe show me an example, I would learn better. I think everyone would learn better.
So it's a very complex process that happens. I'll show you right now what it looks like.
Someone said toast is a Maillard reaction. And so what are we doing here?
Oh, we're gonna roast some marshmallows. Here you go. How's the chat? How do they like their marshmallows? Do they like it fully on
curious.
fire? Or is it more, you want to just...
This was not in the box. Chad keeps a box of marshmallows. People like them on fire or golden brown. So
that's the question. I like mine on fire. It's not,
so I have a very specific way. I like it black on the outside and just raw on the inside. So I usually just stick mine in the hottest part and then pull it out. Barry says perfect gold or you are a bad roaster. He does not sell himself as a roaster. He's a scientist.
I did not say I was a roaster. I was just trying to show Maillard reaction, how you've got a browning of the marshmallow.
I would call that a blackening.
Fair enough. I didn't do a very good job. I'm also using what are these called?
Like a grill lighter.
Grill lighter, which is probably not the appropriate thing to be using to roast marshmallows. However, here you can see an example of it. Todd, do you have any examples now of a Maillard reaction?
It's funny you should ask. So this is a piece of bread. I'm going to put it in the toaster. That is not
a Maillard reaction. That piece of bread is not. Oh, fair enough. That is a good example. But guess what? Your Maillard reaction is not as good as my Maillard reaction. You know why?
Well, because mine was magic.
It
happened in no time.
You did just randomly have a piece of bread up here. But mine actually pairs with my beer. Boom. That does not.
I don't want it.
I'm doing it because and this is a perfect, this is gonna go so well with this beer, and I'm so excited. So you talk while I eat my marshmallow and stout.
Okay, so what Chad is getting into as he's eating this wildly singed marshmallow that I imagine the first part that hit that front part of his tongue, he got a little of that burnt, and that now he's enjoying the sweetness and he's washing it down with the roasted chocolate.
It is so good.
I know.
Essentially, I had a liquid s'more just now. It is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Is it weird if I did another one? I really want to do another one.
No, I have some stuff we can get to in the chat. If you want to just roast marshmallows, and I'll talk. Someone mentioned that Anchor Steam. Someone in the chat mentioned that Anchor Steam Porter was early on, and something we love and we bring up about Anchor Steam all the time is that they were one of the they were the originator. They really got the craft beer movement running. And Chad, where did the Anchor Steam owner come from? What other empire were they involved in? Trivia.
Ooh, I'm going to say it has to do with appliances.
Was it
Bosch? Bosch.
Mm-mm.
No, not Bosch.
It was the KitchenAid.
KitchenAid. It was Mr. KitchenAid.
Fritz Maytag.
No? Damn.
Loved him some craft beer. So Anchor Steam, shout out to them. They were really important when you get into the history of craft beer in America coming back post-Prohibition. They were super integral there. Chad, you wanna let's get through a couple questions and then let's move on and we'll touch a little more on your marshmallow beer experiment and get into a little bit about
can I eat it raw? Can I eat it? I mean, we're not the lifeguard of your fun pool. You can do whatever you want at home.
Would it go with the beer raw or only burnt? Yeah, the only way to consume your marshmallows is uncooked or completely singed. I would recommend somewhere in the middle, but you can't go wrong with a marshmallow and a beer. So there's a couple of questions about mouthfeel, which I think what's really impressive about this, since there's no chocolate, is that this isn't the thickest beer in your mouth. When you're talking about the beer and stouts, they can get much, much, much thicker. So what is going to lead to that sort of viscosity? How are we going to notice that? Is that going to tie directly into the ABV? Those are the questions that we're looking at here.
Yeah, so a big part of that might be residual sugars in your beer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about like the density of the beer, the more stuff you got floating around, the more creamy the beer is going to be. So I would say that's going to be a big component of what you have. If you were talking about the hazy boy that we had the other day, that had a lot of suspended proteins in the beer, so that's going to add to viscosity. So if you're thinking like a Baltic Porter or an Imperial Stout or something like that, you're also going to have the hops that some of those proteins too. So I'd say those two kind of things. The residual sugars are going to make up a big component of the mouthfeel, though.
And Daniel asked the difference between this and Sam's Seasonal Chocolate Bock. Unfortunately, I don't think I've had Sam's Seasonal Chocolate Bock. I think if it's a Bock,
two different styles. So the chocolate Bock is not a porter. So that's the first thing. And I'm going to ask this was a question kind of on the quiz. I want the chat to say, how many types of beer are there?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
So if the people at home, the chat, not the Chad, the chat, how many styles, how many types of beer are there?
Someone said 275. Someone said 2. Someone said 72. Someone said 2. Someone said 100. Someone said 88. So I think the average answer is approximately 60.
That's the average. So there's actually only two types of beer. It's either an ale or a lager. And so, well, you mentioned the chocolate Bock from Sam Adams. That is actually a lager. And this is a ale. And the lagers are that's gonna be a much lighter in body beer, just because lagers are just lighter in body typically, versus ales, as well as they probably actually use chocolate. I think in the Bock, they probably condition it on chocolate, but I'm not 100% sure.
Bocks are always sweeter to me too.
Do you know what it means, Todd?
Bock? It means like they're going to play classical music when it goes into your mouth.
It means like a goat. That's why Von Trapp has that like, I can't remember the type of animal it is, but
I just associate the word goat with being the greatest of all time. So I thought they were just kind of making like a really strong stance towards making lagers. Great. So, okay. If we're going to move into a little bit of food and beer pairings, because we haven't gotten into them too much. And it just so happens I made my magic toast, and I have this. I love to cook. It's a thing of mine. I should have added it in my intro, but I brought this very famous Israeli cookbook. It's called Zahav. If anyone has it, I would love to know. We can share our favorites in the chat. But he's a famous restaurant. Michael Salmanov is a famous restaurant in Philly. I love this brisket recipe in it. And so we're going to go over some food and beer pairings, but I would love to know. Ooh, people have been there. I would love to know we want some of your regional food types so we can make some beer suggestions. So for example, Chicago, I'm thinking of an Italian beef sandwich with both hot and sweet peppers. I recommend it with a beer that's very light because you're going to be sweating and it's going to make you feel better. Chad, are you ready to play pair beer with food?
I didn't know what you were just going to test. I thought we were just going to do that brisket pairing, but sure.
We're going to keep going, buddy. All right.
Let's do it. Let's see how we do. Good thing beer and pairing beer and food is so subjective because everyone's palate is different.
This is a sweet and sour brisket, Chad. So this is a brisket that is going to be made with apricots. It's going to be made with coffee. It's going to be rich. It's going to be sweet and sour. So, Chad, what is that?
Oh, this is my coffee here. This is my Starbucks coffee from this morning. There's a lot left still in there. Clearly, I didn't drink it all. It's cold. I wonder if it tastes how it tastes.
That's disgusting.
Tastes like coffee. You know what else tastes like coffee? This beer. I don't know if anyone else gets these roasted character flavors in this beer, but I can attest right now that cold cup of coffee tastes similar to this beer. This beer tastes way better, by the way, but they're roasted. You know the reason why? The reason why is because of the roasting characters from that Maillard reaction that happens during the kiln drying of the malt. So almost roasting it to the point of combustion, like coffee is when you roast coffee beans.
So if this brisket is made with coffee and it's going to have that kind of the almost the sourness from a black cup of coffee. I know you drink your coffee black. Are you going to recommend a chocolate porter for that brisket? How are we going to think about what beer we want with this brisket?
So you're going to want to think about like complementing flavors. So with this, with the roasting of the brisket, like briskets go through, they cook for like 3-4 hours. I'm sure we've got some
people of the barbecue folks who 17 hours. We know.
They know way. I've never made a brisket personally, which is sad. I should really figure that out as like a Jew. I feel like brisket is a part of me, but
formerly a very cheap cut of meat, no longer a very cheap cut of meat, but that's why it's sort of
so that roasted. So because it's cooked for so long and it has a little bit of a fat to it, like briskets are not that lean. It's still got some juice. You want that juice. So you're going to want a beer that's going to be able to keep up with that intensity and that complexity of the food. And just the fact that you are having a rub of coffee on it just makes it even perfect, more the reason to kind of do something that's going to be more roasted in flavor for that pairing. So thinking about like I don't know if you would go as much as a chocolate, but maybe more of just like just like a normal porter, like a
Baltic.
Yeah, I guess an English porter would work, but more like maybe an Irish stout, English porter. I don't know if you necessarily need that chocolate component to it though. But this would still go really well. Like I'm not saying this wouldn't go well. This would go really well with a brisket.
And so, Chad, and a big part of what beer style goes well with salad, we will get there because Chad, as we talked about last night, he is a salad fan. So
oil and vinegar, baby.
If for me, brisket is a sort of rich food, and I think this beer, maybe this is sort of the top of what I like as being sort of abundantly flavorful. What are some other ways to pair beer with food instead of maybe if I don't want to be on the same flavor line, can I contrast? Is that a good way to pair beer with food as well?
Yeah, definitely. So you love spicy food, don't you?
Yeah, it's like my favorite thing.
Yeah. So how do you cut through spice? You kind of think of the contrasting flavor. What is that? It's gonna be like a malty sweetness, right? Mm-hmm. So to contrast spice, you're gonna do something more with a malt backbone. So like a Dunkel would be a really good beer, a Vienna Lager, a Helles, a Marzen, which is like an Oktoberfest beer, a brown ale, or a red ale. Something that has like this really big malty backbone will cut through that spice. Another thing that will but you also like spice, don't you?
Love it.
You don't want to cut through the spice. You actually want to maybe enhance the spice sometimes.
Ooh, yeah, I'm down. I'm like, I can do a little pain sometimes.
So then you're gonna want to do maybe like an IPA. So that the bitterness will actually start to enhance that spice. So you
that's
can
a hop
think about
thing, right?
Yeah. So one of my favorite pairings, because I love spice too, is buffalo wings with like an IPA, more of like an East Coast IPA, not the juicy bitter. Hazy IPAs are gonna be. They're gonna mellow out that spice just because of just like that creaminess going on in there.
Mm-hmm. And there's both. So if we're going to go back to the salad that was asked about, if we're going to pair a beer to a salad, what are we thinking for a salad? For me, I think it's pretty simple. Like I have a favorite. If I'm being like healthy Todd and I've decided that I'm going to do two things, which is eat a salad and drink a beer, I'm going to want to stay along those same lines, right? So I think for me, I wouldn't get the enjoyment of the salad if I paired it with a 13% barrel-aged stout, right? I feel like those two things that I want, like the crispiness and lightness and refreshingness of the salad, I don't want with the like massiveness of this beer. So I'm going to pick something light and crispy to complement it. I'm going to grab a Pilsner. I'm going to grab a Helles Lager. I'm going to live in that really clear beer, really light, low ABV, because then I'm going to feel good about myself. And then later I'll get on to the
wit beers. Belgian wits are awesome with salads. Hefeweizens are awesome with salads. Saisons, depending on the saison, obviously, but a lighter saison, and something that has some wheat in it is typically going to be good with salads. Again, oil. You think about when you're thinking about the salads of why you add dressing to the salad. If you eat like arugula, not rugelach. Just we had a mix up at work the other day. It was like I accidentally said arugula instead of arugelach, and rugelach, and it was a mess. People had no idea what I was talking about. But this would actually go really well with.
And it wasn't a headphone issue.
It wasn't a headphone issue. And so with salads, herbs like arugula is actually very bitter when you eat it. And so you need to, that's why we add dressing to that. So if you think about when you're having food, if you have something that might be bitter, you're going to want to add some of that fattiness and sweetness, maybe some salt to it. So also really good on a salad would be like a sour, because again, a light sour is just that acidity, like kind of with the oil and vinegar, is going to balance out that salad.
So let's get to a couple of quick questions, and then I want to talk a little bit about beer and cheese as we're almost to the end of our time here. So, and this question has come up a ton over the week, and I think now that we're sort of winding down, I think we can sort of get to an answer. But someone wanted to know about the beers in this box, the beers from these breweries. How can people get them? At this point, we don't have a City Brew Tours mixed 6-pack that you can find at your local grocery store, which are our favorite 6 beers in a box form, unfortunately, Uncle Chuck. But if you're in any of the markets that these beers are in, so if you live in Vermont, you can find Good Water. You can find it at your local liquor stores and grocery stores. If you're in Pittsburgh, you'll be able to find Strange Roots, for example. So these beers are really going to be accessible locally. I don't think a ton of them are sort of nationwide distribution besides Strange Roots, which we talked about a little bit. Exhibit A is starting to get out there. But
Tavor
unfortunately, no mixed packs.
Tavor would be the only option for some of these beers if you are outside their local area.
And the important thing to sort of roll that into the next question about Schwartz beer is that these styles, if you want a chocolate porter, you can get a chocolate porter from Vermont to Arizona. If you want a Pilsner, you can get that anywhere you want. If you want a New England IPA, I promise you can get them outside of New England.
What, you can get New England IPAs outside of New England now?
I don't leave New England for any reason.
I'm kidding. Of course you can. The most popular beer ever.
Yeah. So definitely doable. And then so Schwartz beers, I know someone asked about Schwartz beers, sort of if the New England IPA is the most accessible, Schwartz beers are a little more seasonal. You're probably going to find those more this time of year, autumn and on. And again, I would check with your local breweries. You're probably going to have better luck finding a Schwartz beer from a local craft brewery than from a massive domestic producer.
You're going to look for anything that's like a black lager is going to be considered a Schwartz beer. So
yep,
it's essentially a German black lager.
Totally. So Chad, I know that at this point in you're a father to a dog, you're a father to a daughter, you're mostly retired from the beer guide game. But I do know that we've been pulling you in a lot of directions. The sales team is doing such a good job. We're so busy that we've been pulling you in some beer and cheese pairing virtual events, which is sort of a huge part of the business at this point. So tell me, how do you pair beer and cheese? What do we have going on for that?
So it's similar to kind of what we talked about a little bit before about like the salad reference, right? There's these complementing flavors, there's contrasting flavors, there's resonating flavors, and then there's things that will cut through fat. You want with salt. What is cheese? It's essentially fat and salt. And then there's other things depending on the cheese. It's like blue cheese. Obviously, that's going to add some funk to it. So like, who wants the door beer with a blue cheese? Me, please, because of the funk from that door, from that relic beer to also the funkiness of the blue cheese. Same thing. This with a stout or a porter and a blue cheese. That funkiness with the chocolatiness are going to go really well together. But you also want to think about like cheese has there's like 5 or 6 different types of cheese. So you've got like fresh cheese all the way to aged cheese, like your blue cheeses. Fresh cheese would be like your goat cheese, like your chèvres or your mozzarellas, things of that nature. Cheddar is kind of like your go-to cheese. Like if you want a beer, like cheddar is going to go with an IPA. It's going to go with a brown ale. One of my favorite pairings, you had some toast before. If you want a liquid, if you want essentially a liquid grilled cheese sandwich, have a brown ale with an aged an aged cheddar, and that's going to go so well together because of like the toastedness of the brown ale with the fattiness of the cheese. Also, beer has carbonation, so that's going to carbonation cuts through fat. So does alcohol. Alcohol cuts through fat too. So higher ABV beers are going to cut through really creamy cheeses that have a lot of fat content to them. But yeah, that's kind of like that's essentially. I did like a 5-minute beer and cheese, not a 5, like a 3-minute beer and cheese breakdown. But that's kind of what we do for what I have to do when we're doing these beer and cheese pairings.
Yeah, we run those experiences are usually an hour, so incredible that Chad is able to do it in 3 minutes. But yeah, we basically walk people through all about how beer pairs with cheese. They're incredible experiences. Chad, there was something else in our box tonight.
Oh yeah, this is awesome. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but we acquired Bruvana at the beginning of October, pre-COVID, and Bruvana was a
October 2019.
Oh yeah, that was a year in December, over a year ago. Yeah, so October 2019, and well, pre-COVID automatically dates it back to 2019. So. But so Bruvana is the premier brewery tour in Portland, Oregon. And so this is a notebook from Bruvana, but it actually also is really cool because it's got tons of beer facts. So I don't know if you guys have this in your hand, but we've got SRM, which we talked about, standard reference method. So how you gauge color of beer. You've got the brewing process. So if you just didn't know how beer is made, you can just look at the brewing process. We've got the ingredients, like all the different ingredients, and talks about each one of them, including water. And what does water do to beer? It makes it wet. There are no hard questions on a brew tour. That's my joke that I nail it every time. I miss doing tours because I can't say that joke. It's kind of sad.
I knew it was coming. And all I could do was sit here. There was nothing I could do to stop it.
And then the other thing too is we talked a little bit about glassware, and this kind of shows you can see at the bottom the different types of glass.
You're gonna have to hold. I'll help you because I know
I'm not touching. I'm not going close because there you go. I'm not going close because we know what happens. I just get super blurry.
So awesome. So Chad, I think we're ready. Tomorrow night, we're going to have a blog going up, citybrewtours.com/Hanukkah. Always check out the blog. We had a lot of responses on the quiz. Always room for more. You can take it again. It was hard. It was real hard. I think we were averaging about a what, Chad?
Do we want to give the average or do we want to...
Should we give them another night?
It? What?
You tried hard. I think everyone who took it had fun. As long as everyone's having fun, that's all.
Yeah,
it's
all that matters, right? Fun is the key to this experience.
It was hard. Also, it was really hard.
It was
it's still
hard.
Up. There will be new content up there after this tonight. Tomorrow is our last night. Hanukkah does end. That's sad. I don't know. Chad and I will have to.
I'm just gonna keep drinking. I think I'm just gonna keep doing this each night.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to call each other at 9 every night.
No. I'm still just gonna keep doing the Hanukkah talk. I don't care if anyone's there. It just gives me an excuse.
A guest for the candles tonight? Do we have someone?
Liana, are you available to do the candles? Everyone look at Liana's awesome pants. They match my Hanukkah pants.
It's incredible. Liana, what would you give Chad's performance last night?
Last night? Just last night? Last night
with the candles.
Just the candles.
Oh, I was going to say, I watched most of it. The candles were pretty good. He likes to say Adonai and not Adonai, which is fine, but I always laugh.
We'll call it an A-.
No, it's good. Yeah, he did a good job.
We're proud of him.
These candles are already burnt. Okay.
There's some people in the chat holding out for Chad's pronunciation. They say it's the older generation.
Exactly. He somehow learned that.
It's straight up New York Jew.
Maybe that's it.
I'm a Long Island Jew.
That's how my parents say it too.
Are you going to join me?
I will join you.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehavlinu shel Hanukkah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavotenu Bayamim hahem bazman hazeh.
Mic drop. Boom.
I thought you were fist bumping me. Awkward.
I want the mic.
The applause was strictly for the prayer and the candle lighting. The dismount was not applauded by me, just for the record. Like that.
We never can do that. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you for the last night tomorrow. Make sure you check out our blog. It's live right now. And
send us your questions.
Yeah, send us your question. Another awesome night, Todd.